everyone, and welcome to today's episode of the Positive Proof Podcast. I'm your host, Parmis Najmi, and I'm so glad that you're here. If you want to listen to more episodes like this one on self-improvement, mindset, and wellness, go ahead and hit that follow button to join the family. Before I get into today's episode, I just want to ask you guys for a quick and kind favor, and that is if you haven't yet left a review, I would absolutely appreciate if you could do so. It helps so much to build this podcast and help it grow so that we can increase the positive impact we make and just overall make it a bigger community. Also, if you are looking for daily motivation, follow me on Instagram at Positive Proof Podcast, where I post daily quotes that serve as sweet daily reminders. And if anyone is wondering how to leave episode requests, you can actually send me your thoughts via the DM me your thoughts link in the description or via Instagram DM as well. Also, apologies in advance. I am feeling under the weather, so my voice might sound a little bit different today. All right, let's get into it. Have you ever noticed how some weeks you feel like you can take on the world and other weeks it feels like pulling teeth just to answer an email? We usually chalk it up to stress, lack of sleep, or just being off. But here's the truth. A lot of it comes down to our hormones. For women especially, our cycles aren't just about fertility. They're like a built-in productivity map. Each phase comes with its own natural rhythm of energy, focus, and even creativity. The problem is, though, most of us were never really taught how to actually use that rhythm, and instead we try to show up the same way every single day and then beat ourselves up when we can't. We are not the same as men. They run on a 24-hour cycle. We run on a monthly cycle. So this episode is about changing that. I want to walk you through how you can start using your cycle as a guide for productivity, creativity, and even rest. We're going to talk about the 4 phases and how they map onto the seasons, how to work with your energy peaks and dips, and how nutrition and recovery play a huge role. And then we're going to zoom out to see how this isn't just about work, it's about syncing your whole life in a way that feels much more sustainable. The goal here isn't to give you another rigid system to follow. It's to show you that your body already has one. You just have to notice it. And once you do, productivity stops feeling like a grind and it starts feeling like a flow. And isn't that what we all want? To get in that feminine state of flow. Now, before we get into the details, let's do a quick poll check-in for those tuning in on Spotify. I want to know, do you feel like you noticed your energy shift throughout the month, or do you usually just push through and assume it's random? I'm really curious how many of us are actually tuned into those changes. So scroll down and vote down below. Now let's start with the foundation, looking at your cycle as 4 seasons. The thing no one told us growing up is that our cycle is basically a built-in roadmap. Most of us were taught to dread it or just deal with it, but when you actually break it down, there is a pattern that lines up perfectly with how your energy and focus naturally shift. I like to picture it as the seasons: winter, spring, summer, and fall. And once you start seeing it that way, it makes so much sense why some weeks you feel unstoppable and other weeks you just want to be left alone with a heating pad. Your period or menstrual phase is winter. Everything slows down. Hormones are at their lowest, energy dips, and you might feel more tired or less social. And that's normal. It's not a flaw. It's literally biology. I think of this phase as a reset button. Winter in nature is when everything looks quiet, but under the surface, there's preparation happening for new growth. That's kind of what your body is doing here. Productivity-wise, it's not the best time to force yourself into high energy output, but it is a great time to reflect, journal, or plan. So ask yourself what worked last month, what didn't, and what you want to shift going forward. Then you move into the follicular phase, which feels like spring. Estrogen starts to rise, and suddenly there's this lightness, like someone opened the curtains. You might notice you're more curious, motivated, and ready to try new things. If your period was about reflecting, this is about planting seeds. In terms of productivity, it's the perfect phase for brainstorming or starting projects and just leaning into that natural fresh start energy. Now, after spring comes summer, the ovulatory phase. This is where your hormones are basically teaming up to give you the highest levels of confidence and energy you're going to feel all month. You tend to be sharper, more outgoing, and honestly more magnetic. It's the perfect time for collaboration, meetings, presentations, networking, or even having harder conversations you've been putting off. If there's a phase where you're going to feel most in flow with people, this is it. I always think of it as the part of the cycle where you're naturally wired to be seen and heard. And then, like the seasons, things shift again. The luteal phase is autumn. Energy starts to taper off, and instead of wanting to start new things, you feel more like tying up loose ends. Progesterone is running the show here, and it often makes you more detail-oriented and practical. And this is such a good phase for finishing projects, editing, organizing, and doing the behind-the-scenes work. The closer you get to your next period, the more your body starts asking for rest again, so it's helpful to notice that drop and not beat yourself up over it. Think of it like fall in nature. Everything's being harvested and wrapped up before winter returns. Now, when you zoom out, the cycle isn't this random roller coaster. It's a rhythm. Instead of pushing yourself to be the same every day, you can actually work with it. Align the creative stuff with your spring and summer phases. Save the detail-oriented work for fall and give yourself permission to slow down in the winter. Once you stop fighting it and start mapping your productivity to these seasons, things get a lot easier. You stop forcing consistency that doesn't exist, and you start leaning into the flow your body already has. And honestly, it feels like uncovering a secret rulebook that was really always there. You just hadn't been shown how to read it. Now we're going to move into harnessing energy peaks and dips. One of the biggest mindset shifts for me was realizing that my energy dips and peaks aren't random. They're not about willpower or whether I had enough coffee that morning. They're actually tied to my hormones. And once you start paying attention, you will notice the pattern too. It's almost like your body gives you a built-in productivity schedule, and you just have to listen. Here's how it plays out. When estrogen is on the rise in the follicular phase, your energy follows. You feel sharper, more motivated, and ideas come clearer. It's not just in your head. Estrogen literally boosts brain function and dopamine. So no wonder you suddenly feel like organizing your whole life or tackling that big project. This is the perfect time to take advantage of that new project energy. If there's something that felt impossible a week ago, chances are it won't feel as heavy here. Then there's the ovulatory phase, aka peak energy. Estrogen is high, testosterone gives you an extra edge, and you're naturally more confident and outward focused. This is when you can schedule the stuff that takes a little more of you, whether that's presentations, interviews, or social events. I like to think of it as the phase where you cash in on all the behind the scenes work that you did earlier. And really, it's not about grinding harder, it's about choosing the right moment to shine. Now, as you move into the luteal phase, things begin to shift. Progesterone starts to rise, and instead of that buzzy, outgoing energy, you get something a little bit more grounded. You might feel a little slower, but you're also way more detail-oriented. This is why a lot of women find themselves cleaning, organizing, or suddenly noticing every little thing that's out of place during this phase. It's not you being picky, it's your brain on progesterone. This is such a good time for deep work like, again, editing, problem solving, tying up loose ends. And if ovulation is the peak of the mountain, luteal is the walk back down. Steady, deliberate, and focused. So then, of course, we have the menstrual phase. This is when energy is naturally at its absolute lowest, and your body is asking you to slow down. Culturally, we've been told to push through, to really show up the same way every single day, but the truth is, trying to force summer energy in the middle of your winter, it really doesn't work. And you're not lazy for wanting rest. You're in a phase where your hormones are basically hitting the reset button. Productivity here doesn't have to mean output. It could mean taking time to reflect, recharge, and plan. Sometimes the most productive thing that you can do in this phase is literally rest so that you can show up better when your energy returns. The point isn't that one phase is better than the other, it's that each one has its own strengths. Instead of fighting the dips and trying to stretch your energy thin, you can actually lean into them. Imagine how different work would feel if you stopped blaming yourself for feeling inconsistent and started using your cycle as a filter for your to-do list. you really wouldn't feel like you're constantly behind. You'd just be working in sync with yourself. And I think that's the real win here, reframing productivity so that it doesn't mean squeezing the same performance out of yourself every day, but recognizing that you already have natural peaks and valleys built in. Once you learn to ride them instead of resisting them, you start to feel less burnt out and way more balanced. Your energy stops feeling unpredictable, and instead it feels like something you can trust. Now we move into nutrition and cycle support. Another layer to this whole using your cycle as a map thing is how food plays into it. I don't mean obsessing over a strict diet or trying to overhaul your entire kitchen. I mean noticing what your body actually needs in each phase and giving it that support. The crazy thing is, your cravings, your energy, and even how your body processes food are influenced by your hormones. And when you start syncing your nutrition to your cycle, it feels like you're finally working with your body instead of constantly fighting it. So let's start with the menstrual phase. This is where your body is literally shedding and renewing, which takes energy and nutrients. Your iron levels tend to drop here, which is why some people feel way more tired or even a little bit foggy. So leaning into iron-rich foods, things like spinach, beans, red meat if you eat it, or even just a comforting bowl of lentil soup can help. I personally do supplements because I'm super low in iron, but that works just as fine. Now, pairing those with vitamin C like citrus, peppers, or berries, it helps your body actually absorb the iron. It's like giving yourself a little fuel boosting during a low energy moment. Then in the follicular phase, estrogen is essentially climbing and your body's gearing up for ovulation. This is a really good time to focus on protein and fresh, light foods that match that spring energy that I mentioned earlier. Think lean proteins, lots of colorful veggies, and whole grains. You might even notice you naturally crave lighter meals in this phase compared to the comfort foods you wanted during your period. And it's like your body is saying, okay, we are ready to go, feed me the good stuff. Now, when ovulation hits, you're at your most fertile and your body is basically in peak performance mode. So this is a great phase to focus on foods that support energy and hormone balance. So fiber to help metabolize the extra estrogen, healthy fats for hormone production, and plenty of hydration because your body temperature can actually rise slightly here. So fresh fruits, nuts, seeds, and omega-3 rich foods like salmon or chia seeds are perfect. This is the phase where you can lean into energizing foods that match your high output energy.
Let's take a quick break.
Hey, quick question for you. Are you someone who wants to be fit, healthy, and happy? And what if I told you could get your dream body by simply just listening to a podcast? I'm Josh.
And I'm KG, and we are the hosts of the Fit, Healthy, and Happy podcast.
Listen, we get it. Fitness isn't easy. Carbs, no carbs.
Just stop, okay? It doesn't have to be that complicated. And that's why we made this podcast. We get straight to the facts so you can become your best you.
So the way to check us out is click the link in the show notes or search Fit, Healthy, and Happy podcast on any of the major podcast platforms. We'll see you soon.
And then we get to luteal, the autumn phase. This is when cravings often show up, especially for carbs and sweets. Guilty here, because progesterone is rising and your body is burning slightly more calories than usual. I actually get really hungry in this phase. And instead of seeing this as a weakness, it helps to prepare for it. Complex carbs like sweet potatoes, quinoa, or oats can actually satisfy those cravings in a way that stabilizes your blood sugar instead of spiking it. Even magnesium-rich foods like dark chocolate, nuts, and leafy greens are amazing because they can actually help with mood and bloating, which we definitely need a little extra in this phase. It's really just about listening to your body's cues and giving it nourishment that keeps you steady as your energy starts to shift. And what I love about cycle-based nutrition is that it isn't about restriction. It's really not a don't eat this, do eat that list. It's more like tuning into what your body's already asking for and supporting it in a way that makes your life easier. Because honestly, productivity isn't just about what's on your calendar. It's also about how you feel physically. And if you're fueling your body in sync with your cycle, you are going to have more stable energy, better focus, and way fewer crashes that leave you wondering why you can't get anything done. And the best part is you don't have to be perfect with it. Even just adding a few cycle-friendly swaps each phase can make such a big difference. a smoothie with iron-rich greens during your period, or a protein-packed salad in follicular, a handful of nuts or seeds in ovulation, or a cozy sweet potato dish in luteal. Little things like that add up, and they remind you that your body is always working for you, not against you. Now we're going to move into rest, recovery, and creative output. One of the hardest lessons to learn, and honestly one I'm still reminding myself of, is that rest is not the opposite of productivity. Rest is actually part of it. Especially when you look at it through the lens of your cycle, you start to see that the weeks when your body feels like slowing down really aren't wasted time. They're actually the foundation for the weeks where you can show up at full capacity. Think about the menstrual phase again, your winter. This is the time where culturally we've been conditioned to push through. Deadlines don't care that you're on your period, right? But here's the thing, if you actually honor that need for rest, even in small ways, it pays you back tenfold. Resting here isn't laziness. It's like recharging your batteries. Instead of judging yourself for not being, quote, on, you can use this phase to lean into reflective work. Again, journaling, brainstorming ideas without forcing them, or even just allowing yourself to be quiet. Now, if you have deadlines, again, like I mentioned earlier, because deadlines don't care about your period, then plan in advance. Get the work done in a different phase. Make sure you work ahead so that you can rest when that deadline approaches. Some of the most creative breakthroughs come in these moments when your body and brain finally have space to breathe, so really try to capitalize on that. Then, as you move into the follicular and ovulatory phases, your spring and summer, that's when you'll notice creative output comes more naturally. You're energized, you're optimistic, and you're way more open to collaboration. These are the weeks where you might feel inspired to launch something new, or share your ideas with others, or take on tasks that require visibility and social energy. Rest isn't the focus here because you really don't need much of it. Your hormones, in this case, are giving you that extra push. Instead, this is when you capitalize on the rest you gave yourself during your period and turn it into outward momentum. Now, the luteal phase, or autumn, is an interesting one because it straddles both worlds. At the start of luteal, you might feel focused and productive, ready to tie up loose ends and get into deep, detail-oriented work. But as you inch closer to your period, your energy starts dipping again. This is where the balance comes in. You can ride the wave of that productive, detail-focused energy, but you also have to start making space for recovery. This might mean building lighter days into your schedule, tackling smaller tasks, or even giving yourself permission to say no to extra commitments. The big shift here is redefining what productivity means. We are so used to equating it with output, like how much did I do? How much did I accomplish? How much did I check off that list? But when you zoom out and look at your month as a whole, productivity looks more like flow. It's about working with times you naturally want to go hard and giving yourself permission to step back when your body is asking for it. Rest becomes part of the strategy, not something you sneak in after burnout. And honestly, this applies outside of just work. Creative output in your personal life, like how you show up for relationships, how you take care of yourself, even how you make decisions, benefits from this rhythm too. When you give yourself space to rest, your ideas have room to land. And when you allow downtime, you show up more fully when it's time to push. The cycle makes this so clear. You're really not meant to operate at 100% 24/7. You are meant to ebb and flow. And just to remind you again, men are completely different. So you should never be comparing yourself to a male because they, again, run on a 24-hour cycle. So they have it much more different. And honestly, I really wish that we had this reframe more growing up because rest isn't the break in productivity. Rest is what makes productivity sustainable. And once you see it through the lens of your cycle, you really stop feeling guilty for slowing down and start realizing that it's the smartest thing that you can do. I myself, I'm so guilty of this because I feel terrible when I slow down. I almost feel like I have just gotten nothing done, that I am not disciplined, that I don't stick to my word, I can't trust myself, and it's been a really hard thing for me to do, but it's a reminder that I give myself very often so that I can get into this flow completely. Now let's move on to cycle syncing beyond work. The cool thing about using your cycle as a productivity map is that it doesn't just apply to work. Once you start noticing the patterns, you realize it can actually guide so many other areas of your life, like your workouts, your social plans, even how you approach relationships. I mentioned this earlier. It's like your body has been giving you the rhythm all along, but most of us were never told to pay attention. Take fitness, for example. In the follicular and ovulatory phases, your spring and summer, you've got energy to burn. This is the time when high intensity workouts, they feel good, like cardio, strength training, classes that really, really push you. You're naturally more resilient and less prone to injury here, so your body can handle that extra challenge. Then, when you hit luteal and especially menstrual, your body asks for something different. Progesterone makes you more prone to fatigue, and your muscles might feel tighter or slower to recover, even weaker. Instead of pushing through with the same intensity, it is the perfect time to switch to more restorative movement, like yoga, Pilates, walking. You're still moving, but you're respecting what your body needs instead of forcing it into something it's resisting. I used to make this mistake so much, and I literally laugh at myself when I think about it. I used to do HIIT exercises like 2 to 3 times a week, and when I would do them in my luteal or menstrual phases, it was almost like I got hit by a truck. I was done for the day. And so I changed that and I couldn't be happier. Now for your social life, during ovulation, you might notice you're more chatty or more magnetic, more excited to be around people. This is a great phase to schedule dinners, date nights, or networking events, anything that puts you in front of others. Then when luteal or menstrual rolls around, that urge to be social, it kind of fades and you might feel more grounded or even crave solitude. Instead of forcing yourself into constant plans, you can actually honor that by keeping things lower key, like intimate hangouts, staying in, or using that time for deeper one-on-one connections instead of big group settings. And then there's creativity and hobbies outside of work. Follicular and ovulation are amazing phases for starting something new. A new hobby like painting, writing, trying a new recipe, even just rearranging your space. That fresh, expansive energy, it wants an outlet. Luteal, on the other hand, is a perfect phase for refining, finishing what you started. Your eye for detail is sharper and you're naturally more focused. And then menstrual phase can actually be a time of insight where resting allows new ideas to surface without you actually forcing them. It's almost like a monthly reset button for your creative energy. And sometimes it's not just something your body has to honor, but your relationships, for example, can actually benefit from this situation that us women have going on here. Like during ovulation, you're more outward facing and confident, which makes communication so much easier. It's a great phase to have like those important conversations or to be social with your partners or to do things that require more energy. Whereas during luteal, though you might feel more sensitive or introspective, instead of seeing that as a negative, it can actually be a time to go deeper, like slower date nights, honest check-ins, or just acknowledging that you might need more patience and space. And when you start framing your moods and needs through that lens of your cycle, it takes a lot of that pressure off. It's not kind of like, what's wrong with me? It's, oh, this is where I'm at right now. The beauty of syncing your cycle beyond work is that it teaches you to stop forcing yourself into a 24/7 always-on lifestyle. It gives you permission to adjust and to push when you've got the energy and to pull back when you don't. And the ripple effect is huge. Less burnout, more self-trust, and a deeper connection to your own body. At the end of the day, cycle syncing isn't about rigid rules. It's about awareness. It's realizing that your body already has rhythm, and the more you lean into it, the easier life feels. Whether it's work, workouts, or relationships, you stop treating yourself like a machine and start treating yourself like the human you are. We are human at the end of the day. I feel like we need that reminder a little too often. And that shift changes everything. So again, to wrap things up, your cycle and everything that comes with it, it's not random. It's not working against you. It's actually this built-in map that can guide your energy, your focus, even how you take care of yourself. When you start paying attention, you stop asking, why am I so inconsistent? And you start realizing, oh, I'm not inconsistent, I'm cyclical. And there is so much power in that because instead of fighting your body, you get to work with it. You let yourself rest when it's asking for rest. You ride the wave of creativity when it's there, and you stop holding yourself to this unrealistic standard of being the same every single day. Social media has fooled all of us, so I'm here to tell you that it's all wrong. The truth is, consistency doesn't come from pushing harder. It comes from honoring your rhythm. And your cycle gives you that rhythm on repeat month after month. So if this resonates with you, maybe this week is the time to start tracking. Nothing fancy, just notice and observe your energy, your moods, your cravings. See how they shift, and then line them up with what we talked about today. You're going to be surprised how quickly the patterns pop out once you're looking for them. And if you loved this episode, it would mean so much if you shared it with a friend or, again, left a quick review so more women can find it. Because honestly, the more of us who stop fighting our cycles and start working with them, the less burnout we will all feel. If you made it this far, I appreciate you so much, and I can't wait to chat with you again in next week's episode. Lots of love, Parmis.